And it is not an easy thing to deal with. It is a very long process with Alzheimer's. People are, the caregivers are exhausted all the time because it's sort of like living in Groundhog's Day, every single day, over and over and over again, living life in a loop.
Hi, I'm Wade Hansen. I've been selling luxury real estate in Minnesota and Wisconsin for over 23 years. My entire career has been spent protecting my clients from misinformation and unethical practices by those not looking out for their best interests. This podcast will give you the raw truth about everything real estate so you can make solid, informed decisions about the biggest investment of your lifetime. This is the Raw Real Estate Podcast. Leah, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Looking forward to our conversation. I just want to back up. You and I met as a result of business, I think 5-6 years ago, something like that, when I sold your house in Bailey's Arbor, and you went on to build a house in another community in Woodbury. And I was immediately impressed with your energy. I'm told that I need to have more personality on my podcast. So yeah, you're going to bring that personality.
Oh boy.
And B, just your passion for not only, I think, your business, but for this Bash for Brains. And I want to talk about two things today. One, I want to help promote and talk a little bit about that, the Bash for Brains, and how that came about and where it's at today. And two, a little bit about your real estate experience. My history, I've always been somebody that's supported, my passion is mental health. I lost a sister to suicide, so my passion has been mental health awareness and suicide awareness and things like that. And it's not a fun topic to talk about. And whenever I have people approach me about supporting other causes, it's very, I guess, kind of dry and generic, and it's just, they're just kind of going through the motions. But when you approached me, I could just feel that passion. I'd never been to one of your events, but I just sensed it in you, and I've supported you ever since. So just tell me a little bit about how that came about, what you do, what the Bash is, and just a little background.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for your continued support of the Bash. You'll be getting my letter shortly about your sponsorship this year. The Bash was founded in 2012 after my mom had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and she was only 59 years old. So it was quite the shock for our family. We just had been doing some stuff to, help fundraise as best we could for the Walk to End Alzheimer's, but felt like we weren't really doing enough. And it kind of came down to the wire prior to the 12 walk, and we were, as a family, trying to figure out how can we raise more money, what can we do to, make a little bit more impact here. And we put our heads together and thought, what do we do well? And what we do well in our family is have a party. So we threw the first Bash together in like 3 weeks and raised about $7,000 in with about 50 people in attendance, and we were pretty excited about that. Just like I said, kind of threw it together and did decently. So
how long ago was that?
In 12. So
2012.
It should be the 10th annual, but it will be the 9th because of the sad COVID years. We have been kind of growing ever since. And actually, one of the main reasons that I sold my house in Bailey's Arbor was because of the Bash having kind of overflowed our banks in the backyard. Yeah. So needed a bigger spot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you have a great spot now.
Now I have a great spot, much bigger. We had almost 500 people in attendance last year at the newer location for the Bash for Brains. And we raised over $100,000 last year. So it was kind of bananas. We're growing every year.
So tell me a little bit more about the party itself. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it last year.
You guys had wedding, I think.
Yep. I was out of town that weekend, but so I didn't make it. But I've made it in years past, and it's incredible what you guys put on. But for those that haven't been there, tell me a little bit more about where it's at today and what it's going to look like here. It's coming up September of this year.
September 10th. September 10th this year. So it has grown, like I said, very significantly. Every year we've gotten a little bit more fine-tuned, and now we have food trucks that are feeding everyone, which makes the logistics significantly easier on me. We also have live music. This year it's going to be Dan Rodriguez, who is a local talent who's really on the rise, so we're pretty lucky to be having him. And then we have the Fab Tap. They're pretty fun. It's like a bar in an Airstream trailer. Cool. So they brought a lot of fun energy last year.
Sure.
We have a huge silent auction. It's last year it was valued at over $50,000.
Wow.
I'm sure it will be that way if not more this year. And we have a few new things coming down the pike that I can't yet disclose.
Cool.
So it'll be a great party. We're really excited. September 10th. We hope people will show up. We also last year had to change a couple things for logistics purposes because there's nowhere to park at my house. So now people are parking at Bailey Elementary and getting bussed over, and that went really smoothly last year. So hopefully we'll be able to do that again. So that's kind of the gist. But like I said, the party's a great time, but we're really making some great impact on the community. Half of the funds go to the Minnesota Walk to End Alzheimer's, the Twin Cities one, and then the other half goes to our kind of more recently founded Bash for Brains Fund that affects people in Woodbury, in collaboration, I guess, with the Woodbury Community Foundation. And they act as our fiscal agent to help us be able to get these funds specifically into the hands of people who live in this community, who are dealing with the disease and having to kind of bear the burden of caregiving, which I went through personally, having my mom live at our house for about 3 years of her struggle. And it is not an easy thing to deal with. It is a very long process with Alzheimer's. People are, the caregivers are exhausted all the time because it's sort of like living in Groundhog's Day, every single day, over and over and over again, living life in a loop, essentially. And so what we're able to do now with the fund is give money to people within the community who just need help with respite care. It's very expensive and it is life-saving. So
it's directed back right into the local community of Woodbury here. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that's through the Community Foundation, the Woodbury Community Foundation. Okay.
Yeah, so they have been amazing to help us with not having to have the burden of being our own 501c3. They do great work. So really appreciate it.
I guess I didn't realize that. That's even more... I guess more interesting to see that you're able to cycle that right back into the local community. So many of these go, statewide or national. You're able to just put it right back into the community.
Yeah, because the Bash is raising a lot of money. We're hoping to raise. My sister will kill me for saying this, but $200,000 this year. She'll freak out when she hears this. But we, $200,000 is a lot of money. It makes impact, but it doesn't make a lot of impact on research. It's not that kind of money, So where we can make hay, so to speak, is by putting it into people's hands who really, really need it and are desperate for it at this moment, right? While we wait for them to figure it out, the big dogs to figure it out.
Yeah. And tell me how I can go as somebody that hasn't registered for this. How can I register for the event? How can I donate? How can I help?
There are lots of ways, but everything is available on our website, bashforbrains.com. It's, we are always looking for more sponsors. We want people to come and show up. If you can't make it that night because of various things that are going on in your lives, kids related more than likely, people can still bid online. We'll get the links out everywhere constantly when I'm barraging people in the socials.
Good.
Around the time of this being aired.
Good. Well, you have my support. Like I said, I'm...
Thank you.
It's just nice to see somebody as passionate as you are about what they do. And I know to move from one house to another just for this shows just how deeply passionate you are about this. So I think that's really cool. And keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything else that you want to share about the Bash that maybe we missed that we should touch on?
Oh, maybe I should talk about the pies.
That sounds good to me.
Do you know about the pies?
I don't know about the pies. As long as you're not going to ask me to sit and get a pie thrown in my face.
You're not going to get a pie thrown in your face. So one of the things that has been added to the Bash the last few years since we moved to the new location was my mom was a really great baker. She taught me how to make pies, and she loved to bake. Her kitchen was always open for people to come and have a treat. And so a couple weeks before the Bash in 19, when I had first moved to the new house, a friend of mine had told me about this pie raffle that had gone on, and he was like, you should really make some pies. Let's see what would happen. They were selling these pies for $100. I was like, okay, so I made pies, and we sold the pies for $2,300 the first year.
My
7
gosh.
Pies. So now the
How many pies?
7 pies for $2,300.
Wow.
So now the pies are a staple, and they come at the end and get raffled off to the highest bidder. So it's pretty fun. So if you want a homemade pie, come to the Bash.
All right.
Yeah.
We will. I will be there, and I will be in full support of this for many years to come. So
I really appreciate it, Wade.
Thanks for taking some time to talk about that. I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about just your real estate experience, good, bad,
Okay.
otherwise. I'm not asking you to promote me. I'm not asking you to stroke my ego by any means, but I know you've been through the process, and you're somebody that, you're a strong businesswoman. You run a really successful business. You run a really successful family, and you had a lot going on in your life. And the market was a little different when we did business together, but We sold your home, and you worked your tail off to get it done. And it's not a fun process. I always tell people I never want to sugarcoat it. It's a process that frankly sucks. It's tough. So tell me a little bit about some of the how your experience went selling the home, and then consequently building the home, and maybe some good, bad, and otherwise.
Okay. Oh boy. Well, I had a great experience working with you. As you know, my house was sold really quickly. It was a little bit of a dicey time in my life, and we were also kind of running up against a lot of different factors because my new house was being built and it was going more slowly than expected, which is, I'm sure, always the case. But we actually lucked out, remember? We had a really quick turnaround. My house sold very quickly, especially considering the market at the time. Mm-hmm. And the people who bought it were able to give us an extension, in essence, so that we were able to have one more bash at the house, which was great. But yeah, I mean, it's a dicey thing to deal with. It's a lot of work. I was very appreciative of having the help of your stager come in and give me advice as to what needed to be cleared and all that stuff. Getting it ready is quite the process, but I really tried to listen, and it worked. Everything that she told me was invaluable, and obviously it worked because the house sold in like 10 days, I think, which again at that time was not. Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
That was a 30 to 45 day cycle back then.
Yeah, so it was awesome. What didn't I love? I have 4 children, and getting them out of the house and cleaning up after them for showings was bananas, and I don't look forward to doing that again. I'm going to sell my next house with you after all of my children have left. Yeah. And then where will we do the bash? I don't know. Maybe we won't need it anymore.
We're going to need 10 acres instead of 3
Maybe
acres, right?
We'll have it at a vineyard. The home building process, wow. I mean, that's a whole can of worms to open, but there were definitely a lot of struggles. Like I said, the sort of transitional piece where you kind of don't know when you're going to be able to land there, that was hard. I was moving kids into temporary housing, and all that stuff was bananas, but we got through it. The house is lovely. The land is lovely. The neighbors are, for the most part, lovely. I would say some of the things that I didn't really think about, which I guess I should have, having had built the house in Bailey's Arbor, I should have considered this more. But one of the things that you don't take into account when you build is that you get there and your house is done, and then there's nothing around it. Mm-hmm. And so it's been like a 3-year process for me of finishing landscaping, and I have a pool, and so dealing with all of that. And it's a lot, it's a lot more out-of-pocket expense than you really expect. Whereas if I had just listened to you and bought a house that was existing, I maybe would have had a little easier. But again, came down to the bash.
That's great advice. I think a lot of people forget how much you have to invest into a home after the actual build-out price, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other small factors, everything from blinds and lighting and washers and dryers, all the way down to swimming pools, landscaping, trees and shrubs, right? So
and they're so expensive and on the rise continuously.
Yeah, and that takes time, and that takes money, and it takes some planning ahead, right, to do those things. So would you build again on your next house? You built twice now.
I built twice, and no, I'm never doing it again.
Never doing it again.
When I leave my big house, I'm going to buy 2 little ones in other places.
Somewhere warm and somewhere here?
Yeah,
hopefully.
Maybe, or maybe 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how well you do with my next sale, Wade.
Hopefully that's a long ways away, because I think you're in a great spot. It's a beautiful home. You've got a really good spot for the bash.
Yeah. It will be a long ways away.
Yeah, you've worked really hard to be where you're at, and I give you a lot of credit for what you've done.
Thank you very much.
So, as far as building goes, talk about some of the good things that were through the building process that you're really like glad you built because of.
Yeah. Well, my house is definitely a reflection of our family. It was really, really, I love to do interior design only for my personal use. I'm not.
You're good at it. I mean, I remember the house we sold. It was beautiful. So you say our stager came in. They didn't have to do a lot because you had just phenomenal taste.
Well, that's nice of you to say. Thank you. I really do enjoy that part of it. And so it was really, really fun for me to pick out things like woodwork and trim. You don't think about that necessarily, but it is really specific once you get down to it. So that was really fun for me. I loved the buying the lighting process. I feel like the lighting is the jewelry of a home, and people kind of forget about that. And so a big portion of my budget went into that. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things that I think really wows people about my house now. It's very specific, and so my lights might not be anybody else's taste, but it's a fun part. And I think also I don't know. I pull up to that house every day, 100 times a day, driving kids around to 47 sports, and I think like this house is it's a great reflection of me. It looks like me, you know. And we always joke that I work for Beauty Counter, and we joke that my house is the house that Beauty Counter built, and so I am always able to utilize it for entertaining and doing all the things that are part of my job and part of my business or part of my philanthropy. I don't know, there's a lot to be said for doing it. I mean, it does make it feel like it's yours more than anything else, you know. So
it's the house you built, not Beauty Counter built. I mean, you worked really hard, and I like I said, I'm really impressed with what you've done, and I know I told you that before, but and I see you host a lot of meetings, and that's kind of your gathering spot for the Bash for Brains. I don't think people can really appreciate the work that you put into putting an event like this on. I mean, this is a 12-month a year, 365 process, right? This isn't something you just start planning a month before.
Well, we take a little bit of a break because we all have to fall down on the floor for a while after the bash. But we have a really amazing planning committee that has grown every year, and more support from sponsors and, you know, people like yourself in the community who continuously show up to give us, you know, the funds that we need to pull off a great bash. But yeah, we do it. I mean, we're definitely out of the gate now. The planning started a couple months ago, but it is a really great time too. Like, we really enjoy the people that are part of our committee, and we have a great time. Yeah, the meetings are always in my basement. There are usually Coors Lights there and other various things to drink. So we have a really, really good time. So that's another way people can support. If you're interested in getting involved in philanthropy, we're always looking for more people to help volunteer at the bash or prior to, as is the Woodbury Community Foundation. So, you know, hit me up if you need info about how to get involved, because it's the people that make it not only how much fun, but how amazing it can be. You know, getting pulled off is... It all comes down to everybody's efforts, not just ours. Yeah,
and we'll post a link, and it's not always about donating financially. Sometimes just putting some sweat into it. Yeah, I think that's a good way for people to give back.
And, it's huge.
It
helps a lot.
Yeah. Well, before we part ways, I don't know if you've watched any of my podcasts. It's okay if you haven't, but I always like to end with one question.
Oh, boy.
And I think, like I said, you've built a really successful business, and I always like to ask people that have been on my podcast, you know, what is the one key factor, maybe into the success of the bash or into the success of your business, or both? What do you attribute to your success?
I would say vulnerability.
Good answer.
That's my superpower and my kryptonite, I guess. But yeah, I think you know, when especially for women, I think we don't give each other very many opportunities to support each other, and when women are asked, they want to. And so giving people an opportunity to be in your corner has been the thing that has definitely changed my life from a business perspective, but also for the bash. You know, when we started doing the bash, now it's been 10 years ago, it was kind of like, do we really want to ask people to come and support financially? But what it comes down to is they just don't get asked often enough. And so, it has taught me a lot. Vulnerability, that's the key, I would say.
It's a great answer, and I really appreciate you being here. I will do anything I can to support you and your cause. And
thanks, Wade.
Again, we'll post links online, and I look forward to seeing you September 10th at your
Bash
house.
for Brains.
It's going to be the nicest day of the year.
Every year it is.
Thank you for listening to the Raw Real Estate Podcast. If you have any feedback for this episode or want to suggest a future topic or even possible guests, head to wadehansen.com. There you can get links to my Facebook and LinkedIn pages. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to see the video version of this podcast too. Again, thank you for listening to the Raw Real Estate Podcast. We'll talk soon.